Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. You are most welcome here. We're coming up on Father's Day, and first I just want to have a big shout out to dads and all the wonderful, important things that you do for your children and for your community. Today I was inspired once again by these Dollar Tree vinyl bags to make a gift for the dad in your life. But no, we're not going to make a handbag for dad. We're going to use one of these image transfer techniques that we did in another video and make something really fun for dad for this Father's Day. Let's go have some fun. We're going to begin by transferring an image to the Dollar Tree vinyl bag, and I've already cut the vinyl bag apart and flattened it out with a cool iron. And when you look at the bag, you might notice that part of it has been cut out, and that's the part that I cut out to test transferring images to the vinyl with the Mod Podge. Now I'll link that video here. What I discovered when I did that was that images don't transfer all that well to the vinyl. They come out a little bit rough. There are going to be holes in the image, but I thought that would be cool if we wanted something that looked sort of old and worn. So that's the intention here. Here I've printed out an old map, and if you're going to print something with words, remember to reverse it before you print it, because when you transfer it, it's going to get reversed. Now this is one of the opportunities to personalize this gift. I've chosen a map because I think maps are cool, and the person that I'm going to give this to likes maps, and this is a map that is meaningful to us. So what you're going to do is cover your image with the Mod Podge, a good thick coat, and then you're going to put it Mod Podge side down on the vinyl, and then I use a popsicle stick to press it into the vinyl. You're then going to leave it to dry for 24 hours. Now, after 24 hours, use cool water. It's important that the water is cool. And you're going to saturate the paper and then very gently rub the paper off. You want to do it gently so you can leave as much of the image behind as possible. And again, it's not going to be perfect, I believe, because of the texture of this vinyl. Now, when you're doing this, you might have to do it more than once. So you will rub the paper off, and it may look like you've gotten all the paper off. But then when it dries, you might see a haze, and that's paper that hasn't been removed. So just repeat the process. If you want to speed it up, you can use a blow dryer, dry it, and then when you see the haze, wipe it off with the cool water, and then repeat. And I promise, if you're persistent, you will eventually get all of that paper off. Now, here is my finished transfer, and I decided to seal it using a matte spray acrylic sealer. What we're going to do with this is make a little notebook, and what I want to put in the notebook is these 4 by 6 inch index cards, and I just picked these up at Target. So I used a paper template to get the size for the little notebook cover, which we're going to cut out of the vinyl. You can put, of course, whatever you want inside your notebook. You'll see that the 4 by 6 cards actually work out pretty well when it comes to putting a strap on the notebook cover to hold it closed. So what I'm going to do is use like ring binder rings, which I happen to have some lying around, but I'm pretty sure you can pick them up just about anywhere. Like when you pick up the index cards, pick up the rings, and I'm only going to use 2 because I think that's plenty for the index cards. Now, there are inserts to organizers like calendars and things like that. You might want to make a choice like that for the inside of your notebook, or you might want to make it a photo album. You might want to fill it with notes from children to their father. It's entirely up to you, of course. You might prefer paper or a paper notebook to index cards. This was just the choice that I made for the inside of mine. Once you've got your template for the vinyl, place it over the image in a position that you like. I tried to pick a place that I thought was attractive on mine, and then simply cut it out as carefully as you can. I would say err on the side of making it a tiny bit too large. I feel like mine could have been a little bit larger, but I'm not really sure. I could also maybe have put fewer note cards inside of my notebook. I bought 100 cards and I did put them all in. Now, I felt like I wanted my cover to be a little stiffer. And this is, again, it's your choice. But what I decided to do was take some cardboard, and my cardboard, it's good old kitchen cardboard. You know, I like to reuse kitchen cardboard. Mine comes from a granola bar box, and I used some of the leftover vinyl. Now, if you don't have a big chunk cut out of your vinyl, like I do, cut out of mine, and if you're making this the same size as mine, you're going to have plenty of vinyl left over. I ended up having to use a little piece of vinyl that has a cut in it because I had cut that piece of vinyl out. But what we're going to do is we're going to cut the vinyl to be slightly smaller than 1/2 of our notebook, and we'll cut 2 pieces. And we'll cut the cardboard to be slightly smaller than the vinyl. And then we're going to glue cardboard on either side, so this is going to make our covers stiff, and then we'll glue the vinyl over. Now I want to say now, you might want to accessorize this, and so you may end up wishing to slip things under this cardboard before you put it on. So I would say watch the whole craft first, and then decide what sort of variations you want and whether the order that you put things together needs to change. One thing I learned in the past is that hot glue seems to work best for gluing the wrong sides of this vinyl together, so the softer sort of non-vinyl side, the inside. So I'm going to use hot glue to glue the cardboard down, and then hot glue to glue the vinyl on top of the cardboard and on top of the other vinyl, because I'm gluing wrong sides together. For the index cards, you're going to cut a strip of the vinyl and glue that at the top and the bottom of the middle, and then put those binder rings on that. And I felt I really only needed 2. And I have a 3-hole punch here, so I sort of figured out where I wanted the holes to be in the card, and then I used a little piece of tape on the 3-hole punch because it wasn't going to go down against the bottom. There's a little guide there, but that was, I felt, going to make the holes a little too far down, so I put a piece of tape on my 3-hole punch as a guide, and then I was actually able to punch all 100 cards, and the holes lined up pretty well, so that seemed to work out pretty well for me. Now you could call this done at this point, but I wanted it to close in some way, and I thought a lot about how to make it close. So you could do something around it, like a belt, or you could do a couple of little clasps on the side. I'm not sure how to describe what that looks like to me, but there are a lot of different ways that you could clasp it, and you could use Velcro, for example. But I realized if I wrapped it around vertically, that those 2 little silver buttons line up. Now those are the buttons that held this onto the original bag, and they are not very easy to get off. But what I was able to do was pop off the top of one of the buttons with a flathead screwdriver, and then crush up the piece that was directly under it with some pliers, and then sort of push it through. It's kind of funny because when I was taking one of these bags apart for another project, some of these buttons just popped right off. So you may have more luck getting these off than I did. It just took me a little bit of time, but I was able to get them off. Once I had the buttons off, I just ironed the strapper handle with a cool iron. This vinyl irons really well, and I just wanted it to be nice and flat. The problem with the strap, though, is that it doesn't really go with the cover anymore because I've put that map on the cover. So I have my burnt umber paint, and I have some black paint, and I have what's left of the transfer. So I thought I could try the burnt umber and the black up against that transfer and see what seems to go well with it. And I thought I would try dry brushing it a little bit, and it turned out that the burnt umber really didn't look good at all, that the black looked much better. But of course you might use a different map. By the way, this map image I got off of Wikimedia Commons. It's an old map of Paris, and so I ended up using the black, and this was just a test here. Then I put it on the strap, and when I put it on the strap, I started with dry brushing, and you will see it with the dry brushing, and I didn't really like the way that dry brushing looked. So what I ended up doing that I thought looked much better was I took a little bit of black paint, watered it down quite a lot, and sort of washed it over and then wiped it off. And it got into the crevices, and it just, to me, it just gave it a much better color than the dry brushing. Now, I found that super glue will glue the right sides of this vinyl together really well. So we will be using super glue to affix this to the back of the notebook. But before we do that, I want those holes to be a little bit bigger, the ones that the little silver buttons were through. Now, I am able to use a hole punch to get through one layer of this vinyl. I am not able to easily use a hole punch to get through 2 layers, although with the second hole I was able to do it. So I used sort of a combination of the hole punch and a box cutting knife, and I was able to come up with some nice, neat circles at each end. And you can see this is the dry brushed version before I go through and wash it with the paint, so it's pretty ugly. And here's the better technique. That's some very, very watered down black paint. Much more water than paint there. Just brush it on and wipe it off, and it's going to look much better. Now, what's going to go through those little holes? Well, I thought just another piece of the vinyl would be fine. Just a little long, thin piece of the vinyl through the hole would tie it very nicely. And in fact, you can slide it off if you work it. So you can tie it and kind of leave it tied, and it works as well as if you untie it. I cut about a 1/4 inch. So the first one I cut was too thin. It was less than a 1/4 inch. The size that worked well for me was a 1/4 inch. And I thought it would look nice if I cut it from a piece of the vinyl that had the map on it, but in use, the map wears off. So you might want to cut a piece of vinyl and age it. So this is a 1/4 inch by 8.5 inches. And now, putting it all together, I just flattened the book out. It even still has those note cards in it. And I did slide my cutting mat under there because it's got all those lines marked on it. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to have a cutting mat with a grid on it. So I slid that under there so that I could make sure that I had, first of all, the edge of the book aligned with a line, and then where I want to put the tie or the wrap lined up with a line so that it was straight. And I had previously figured out where I wanted that tie to be on the front cover. I didn't want it exactly in the middle. I wanted it a little bit at the top. So figure that out so that you're gluing it where you want it glued. And then here's the super glue, and super glue is going to work great for gluing the right sides together, which is what we're working with here. Now, if you use the crossbody strap, remember it's not finished on one side. And I'm not sure what would be the best way to glue that, simply because you'd be gluing one right side to one wrong side. And the hot glue doesn't work that well on the right sides of this. So I recommend using one of the hand straps like this and gluing right side to right side. And then the super glue, it just needs a little bit more time than the 15 seconds on the package, but not that much more time, a minute or two. I just held it down and then I put some weight on it. And there, that's dry now. And this is what I mean by figure out what you want, what little accessories you want on this thing before you glue everything together, because I realized I really wanted one of those little loops that would hold a pen. And I forgot to put on a loop that would hold a pen, so that's sort of an afterthought. And I think it probably would have looked better if it were slipped under that piece in the back with the cardboard. But I wasn't about to pull the whole thing apart. I wasn't sure how that would work. So I decided to just put the pen loop on the back on top of that piece on the back. So I found some vinyl that I thought would work, and I just aged it, with the black paint wash, and cut it. And because it was right side to right side, super glued it onto the back. Figured out what height I wanted it at, figured out what the best positioning was. And then after I had done it, I had made it a little bit too big, so I folded it over a little bit and made it a little bit smaller. And then if this is a notepad, final touch would be writing a little note in it, and I felt like this quote goes along with the map. You might recognize it as part of Bilbo's poem about Aragorn if you're a Tolkien fan. Not all those who wander are lost. And a happy Father's Day note, and you've finished your gift. So what did you think of our Father's Day project? Did you make it? Did you make variations on it? I'll tell you why I like this project. First of all, it's relatively easy. I didn't make you sew anything. It's all basically cutting and gluing. And second, there's so much room for personalization. You can change what you put on the cover, and you can change what you put inside, and you can change the little accessories, like whether you have a pen holder or not, or maybe even a little pocket inside. If you made this, I'd love to hear about your variations in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you have a wonderful Father's Day. Take care.